Now it's on.
The light went on.
Yeah. Okay. We'll call the Civil Service Commission special meeting of August 10th, 2022 to order at 5:32. So roll call. We have Abel here and Joe's here and I'm here. We have Bill is absent and we have an empty seat. All right. So we'll move on to item number 1, public comment. Being nobody from the crowd unless Dave just has to say something. Okay, and Kevin, thank you for being here and putting up with us. Move on to consent calendar, item number 2.
You want a motion on that?
That would be nice.
I'll make a motion on that. That we approve the consent calendar.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the consent calendar approval. Roll call.
Commissioner Rios,
Yes.
Commissioner Perez,
Yes.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
We have a 3-0 vote, 1 absent.
Okay, we'll move on to item 3, regular business. Subsection A, 8878, amendment of classification specification for assistant sheriff.
Yes, good evening, Commissioner Sabrina Mendez, Department of Human Resources. So as you are aware, last month we brought before you the peace officer classification and comm study. We did make you aware that we would bring back any material changes made on that presentation. The assistant sheriff classification is unrepresented. So after we spoke with the department and a review, we did make some changes, which you'll see in red. And this is for your review and consideration.
I'd like to ask, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a question. Is that what that means by red line? You got there and you got the red line?
Correct. We provided a copy
Okay.
which shows the strikeouts or the revisions made in red, and then also a copy that incorporates all of the changes.
Pull down.
Okay.
Ed. Okay.
No, I've seen it before.
Okay. A lot of times it's hard to know what was changed if we don't have compare it to. And we took these out in the individual items just so we could see each one separately and
Correct.
not try to bunch them all together as one thing because they're all different.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And
Thought you might. I was doing it more for Bill's sake. He's not here, so we won't let him know.
Are they aware of that red line in there?
I'm sorry, who is the department?
The assistant sheriff? He says red line, he's aware of
The
corrections are made?
department head, the department head is aware of the changes.
Now, all of these are coming to us because they were changed and approved by the different units.
Correct. And in this case, they are unrepresented, so we spoke directly with the department.
Okay, so what's your pleasure?
Make a motion that we approve it.
Second?
all right. I was just reading through trying to answer my own questions here. I second.
Do we have a motion and a second for approval of item 8878? Roll call?
Commissioner Rios,
Yes.
Commissioner Perez,
Yes.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
We have a 3-0 vote to approve.
Item subsection B, 8857, amendment of classification specification for Chief of District Attorney investigations.
Yes, so commissioners, this is a similar item to the previous item. Again, we did speak with the department head as this is an unrepresented classification. And so after review, we did make some slight modifications to the specification.
Have any questions on this?
Are these modifications are we finding that they're going to be a little bit more helpful when negotiating with the unions for the changes that are being proposed?
Well, this position is unrepresented, so they
Okay.
are not tied to any
Okay.
bargaining unit. So I was in contact with the department who wanted to revisit the job specification and just found that some revisions needed to be made. And so some of those were incorporated into the job description.
Okay.
So like moving this senior district attorney investigator out of this particular item is because we already have that one listed separately.
I'm sorry, moving it out?
Well, you got it, the red line, it's after the supervising district attorney investigator. Then it goes, the senior district attorney
Oh,
investigator
correct.
is redlined out.
Yes, so that was placed there in error, so we removed that.
Okay,
So really, we were just trying to identify the current position with the one just below it, rather than adding the additional, just to alleviate any confusion.
okay, but do we have that senior district attorney investigator as a separate person, separate job description?
Yes.
That's what I was getting at.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. Because there are differences between the three of them. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
What's your pleasure, guys?
Man, that's a lot of redlining.
Just think how clean it looks when it's all gone.
Uh,
I don't like the term redlining. It means something totally different.
You can identify
Something
it.
much more
Red
illegal.
font, the red
But-
font.
Yeah.
You can find it real quick this way, though.
Yeah.
Stricken.
I moved to approve 3B.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for approval of item 3B. Roll call.
Commissioner Perez,
Yes.
Commissioner Rios,
A lot of redlining, but yes.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
We have a 3-0 vote to approve.
Okay, we'll move on down to item 3C, 8855, amendment of classification specification for Deputy Sheriff 1.
Yes, good evening again, Commissioner. So this is similar to the previous item again, with the exception of this actually being represented by a unit. And after negotiations, these are the changes before you that were made with the unit. If you'll notice, it's mostly in the minimum qualification section. If you want to scroll to that section.
Is that indicative of the fact that we have trouble finding people that want to be law enforcement?
This will definitely be helpful in the recruitment process, yes.
Does this also fit in with the process that Chief Barney started where they had put people into Post Academy with hopes of retaining them as employees later?
Yeah, so that is a different program. So I think you're referring to the Sheriff's Cadet Program?
Right.
Yes.
This would allow those candidates to be hired on as Sheriff
Mhm.
1
Right,
immediately,
Correct.
rather than
Getting-
remaining cadet status.
right. Simplifies it.
The motion that we approve.
Yes, I second.
Do we have a motion and a second for approval of item 3C, 8855? Roll call.
Commissioner Rios,
Yes.
Commissioner Perez,
Yes.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
We have a 3-0 vote to approve.
Item 3D, 8870, amendment of classification specification for Deputy Sheriff 2.
Yes, Commissioners, this is also similar to the previous item where some small changes were made to the job specification based on negotiations with the unit. The changes are noted under the license certificates and special conditions. So it's just changing the possession of the post certification from intermediate to basic.
Is the excuse me, what's the difference?
So the difference, the intermediate is a higher level, so it requires more job experience.
Okay, so someone who has some Deputy 1 can go back and get more certifications
Correct.
through
And
kind of like
promote.
continuing education
Correct.
kind of things. Hi, guys.
Make a motion, we approve. It's two little red lines, it's all right. I'm just kidding, guys, okay?
Have a second?
I second. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Item 3D, 8870. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Rios?
Yes.
Commissioner Perez?
Yes.
Commissioner Fry?
Yes.
We have a 3-0 vote to approve.
Item 3E, 8875, amendment of classification specification for public safety dispatcher.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. This is a revision, again, as similar to the previous item. Changes were made after negotiations with the corresponding unit, and changes were made to the examples of important and essential duties, as well as some of the knowledge listed and the abilities.
So at this level, they would not be doing any, like the one that's lined out of the pre-arrival medical instructions. They're not-
Correct. After,
they're not
correct.
required to do that at all?
They're not required to do that.
So do they then pass it on to someone different that might help the situation?
My understanding is after speaking with the department, it would not be something in this classification that would perform that duty.
Yeah,
I'm
well-
not sure of who would be designated to do that.
I can just envision, I've had to make many phone calls over the last 6-7 years to 911 for different things.
Mhm.
And occasionally I've had to kind of get on them because the person's bleeding.
Mhm.
There's an issue there that we need to get a little more urgency going. And if the person on the phone can't do anything, especially if you call 911,
Mhm.
but if this is a sheriff's department or a public service, that's a little bit different than a 911 dispatcher. Right?
Yeah, well, in this level too, it's really important that we try to capture duties that they would perform or have knowledge of day one.
Yeah.
Are these dispatchers, is it relative to the area in which 911 is dialed, or is there a specific number?
Yeah, so they're Madera County
Okay.
dispatchers, correct?
Because to your point, I'd hate to dilute the ability for Madera County to serve effectively an individual who has a 911 call, and the excuse that, well, we want to put somebody in there quickly and be able to start working day one.
Yeah.
May not always be the best option, right? Because I mean, their job title is safety dispatcher. That in its own. I mean, I would hate for them to just say remain calm, helps on the way. I mean, we can get an auto, a voicemail to do that.
Yeah. So if I may, just to try to clarify, so our understanding with the dispatch center for Madera County Sheriff's Department, they are in contact with other dispatch and EMS, for example, for their medical services. So they may actually connect with emergency medical services so that they have someone on the line that they may,
Right.
that can assist. Yeah.
I have to, when I pick up my phone to make a fast call, I have to remember, am I calling just the sheriff's department or 911? Because you get two different kinds of people when they answer the phone.
And sometimes it depends on where you are location wise. Yeah.
Because of what,
You may get switched over to CHP dispatch, for
Right.
example.
This dispatcher works for the county only, right?
Yes.
So anything happens within the county, wherever department or wherever they're at, somehow they contact him?
So these are Madera County Sheriff's Department employees, but that doesn't mean that our dispatch center doesn't partner with other agencies in assisting, or they may transfer the calls over, like I said, if it's CHP, for example. But they are Madera County employees, and so they'll provide services to Madera County. And then
Under the ability to, I see it red and underlined. Is that an addition, or was that supposed to be out, crossed out, removed?
Give me 1 second. Under the ability to, the red underlined.
Correct.
So that was added. So it was previously under knowledge of,
Okay.
and we moved it to ability to.
Okay. I was making sure that wasn't supposed to be accidentally crossed out, and then
No.
we were saying we don't even want them to do those basic duties.
Yeah.
Or have those basic principles.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, so we believe they should have those principles, but it was just moved from knowledge of to ability to.
like most of us, if we want to train somebody the way we want them done, This allows them to do that. The person doesn't already have an idea how to do it. You can now teach them the way that you want it done. And then you know what they're taught, hopefully.
So I guess we're getting to a point where we are requiring that somebody knows where to direct somebody for assistance, identify the need, direct them, but not personally give that advice, right? Or consultation in regards to techniques or the purpose of identifying at-risk people.
So those basic principles are going to be learned on the job
Okay.
through training that they have internally and within the department on how to respond. I do want to make a note that when these dispatchers are hired on brand new, there is more of a training process for them than I would say probably a lot of the other positions that are within the county. They are working, actually being mentored by another dispatcher. So a lot of that stuff, again, is learned on the job during their training process.
Okay. All right. And so last comment, I would just like to say, if we are removing a requirement from an essential duty or job requirements, maybe give us a job title for the person that does handle that, right? So now if that's the dispatcher 2, it'd be nice to know, okay, that's the responsibility if they want to promote to that next level, right? Because, I'm not too familiar with each of the jobs. And so knowing that, all right, there is people on site that are able to provide this type of assistance and we're not just excluding it out entirely, I think that would be helpful, not only for myself, but for the public, because if they're the thousands of people listening right now, they're probably really concerned.
Well, you will see the next item will have this language in there.
Okay.
And it'll be for the higher level position.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and sometimes we get lucky when there's modifications in the next job, the positions there, which is cool. But then, like on the last ones that we were talking about, because we went from deputy sheriff 1, deputy sheriff 2, and it was like, okay, well, what does 3 get, right? So I guess that's up to us to do our research ahead of time as well. So anyway, I move to approve item 3E.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second for approval of item 3E 8875. Roll call.
Commissioner Perez,
Yes.
Commissioner Rios.
Yes.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
We have a 3-0 vote to approve.
On to 3F 8876, amendment of classification specification for senior public safety dispatcher.
Yes, Commissioners, this is a revision of the specification for senior public safety dispatcher. Some revisions were made based on negotiations with the corresponding bargaining unit. Changes were made again to the examples of important and essential duties and as well as the knowledge of area.
Can I just make one comment? Before the county agreed to any of these changes, there was always discussion with the department to verify what was needed for the job, to conduct the job, or what was needed for the level of the position. I just wanted you to know that it wasn't an arbitrary decision based on human resources, but there was conversation with the unit as well as with the department.
And I'm going to assume that the one that we took out refers to monitors diversion status of all hospitals and special units within each hospital is because we have emergency services department that does that. That job is done by somebody else that's more qualified.
Yeah, can we put for the public safety, or it's not for the public's knowledge? I mean, are we able to put like an asterisk in green or blue that says handled by this department now, next to if we're removing things like that?
So these items, they're specifically for that particular position.
Right.
So we don't, what we're putting into a job description is just to describe the job at hand.
Correct.
So when someone is utilizing this position, they can go to it to understand what duties and responsibilities they are expected to perform and to
Sure.
maintain.
But for the sake of the meeting, are we able to have a copy that puts in parentheses for the sake of public, right? Because these are public hearings. made to help the public understand what changes are being made. And I can't help but think that, my grandma is going to read this and say, well, who's going to be monitoring the diversion status of all hospitals and special units, right? And that information now they have to find it, right? So, and that's why I feel obligated to ask those questions. Well, where does this go now? Who's taking care of that? Who's responsible for that? So I'm saying more so for the sake of public information, saying, okay,
Yeah.
rest assured, that's not this position, but this is how we handle it, right?
Yeah, it is, and if I may interject, it is under the supervising public safety dispatcher, which was brought before you in the previous meeting in July, that the supervising level handles the non-calls, let's see, provides assistance as needed, provides pre-arrival medical instructions to callers utilizing established emergency medical dispatch. So it is outlined in the supervising level.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Abel. It's just, that's a lot of extra work to put in there. You could put a footnote or something like
Yeah.
that. This being removed is actually handled by this department over here. Somebody really wants to be inquiring minds,
Yeah,
they have answers for it.
right,
So, yeah, how much redundancy can we have?
right.
So that's where I'm at with it. What's your pleasure on this item?
Make a motion that we approve it.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item F 8876. Roll call?
Commissioner Rios,
Yes.
Commissioner Perez,
Yes.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
We have a 3-0 vote to approve.
On to item G 8879, amendment of range placement for sheriff's civil unit manager classification.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. At last month's meeting, we did bring before you the peace officer and class study. Part of that was a position allocation sheet, which noted our proposed ranges for the various classifications. So the initial proposal for sheriff civil unit manager classification was 19, and through negotiations, we are now proposing to place it at range 20. Also, I did want to note, you'll see the change in red, range 20 with the new corresponding salary. The others that are shown in red are last month. If you recall, we did bring before you the allocation sheet and had revisions, which we provided a paper that was not publicly displayed. So this is just noting those changes in red.
So this is public information now.
Correct.
That's just,
A
or
part of it, yes.
once it's approved by the board,
Correct.
it'll be public. So
Correct.
that's what people will see.
So all these changes have been implemented into this form, right?
Correct. The ones, yes, correct. So all of the information here was brought before you previously in July. The ones in red were the ones that were changed. We did change them before, but we provided just a paper copy. It wasn't actually on your agenda.
If you recall, we had a few where the numbers were incorrect on the copy that we provided you, and we had given you a hard copy to show you the correct numbers.
Right.
The red is just reflecting those correct numbers, except for the item that is before you for the sheriff's civil unit manager. That one did say 19 under the range initially when we gave you the documentation in July. But as Sabrina had mentioned, through negotiations with the unit, based on the managerial duties that this position has, the county agreed to actually bring that position in at range 20 rather than 19. And so through that negotiations, we're now coming to you because that's a substantial change from our last proposal to you.
Yeah, that is quite a jump.
The new minimum's the old max.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it's up to the supervisors to determine the cost of, the ability to afford that. So I move to approve 3G.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion.
I have one more question. Now
Okay.
all the department heads, they're aware of this document, right? They've already been presented with it? Or does it go somewhere else before they get it?
So the document went to all of the bargaining units. No, did we?
The department heads will get it once the board has approved it. As far as the salary piece, they have seen all of the job descriptions and approved the changes for the job descriptions before it was ever given to the bargaining units for negotiations. And again, like I had mentioned, when we were negotiating any changes, we were in communication with the department heads on whether or not it fit with the position, whatever the change may have been. The salaries will be provided to the department once the board approves the salaries.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for approval of item G 8879. Roll call?
Commissioner Perez,
Yes.
Commissioner Rios,
Yes.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
We have a 3-0 vote to approve.
Okay, move on down to item number 4, staff reports. Still have an empty seat.
Yeah, before we get to that, I just wanted to give you, I guess, a heads up, if you will. Because negotiations are very fluid, we may end up having to reach out to you again to have another special meeting because we are trying desperately to get this before the board as quickly as possible. So some of these items that need to come back to you, they have to come back to you before we can go to the board. And so timing wise of the board meetings and your meeting, your normal time, we may end up having to schedule special meetings, but we will reach out to you like we have in the past and talk with you about that to try and find the most efficient date in order to have those. So I just wanted to let you be aware of that so that you're not kind of blindsided the next
Sure.
time that we do this. And then I also wanted to let you know that we do have 5 of our 10 bargaining units that are impacted by this study have already agreed. So we have reached agreement with 5 units. So we just have 5 more to go. Just wanted to impart that information.
Does this sound hopeful?
Yes, yes. It's always helpful when we make some progress.
Gotta make-
Well, when the new minimum is the new max or the old maximum, they're pretty easy for them to approve, right?
Yes.
If we can get that much, how come we can't get more?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea when this special meeting is going to be?
No, not at this time. It really depends on where we're at with negotiations. If there is a unit that we're ready to progress onto the board, then we will determine when we schedule it. But I just wanted to give you a heads up.
So it could be 5 separate meetings, or you could get them all at once.
True.
If
I
you
I
get
think
lucky.
5 is a little too much, but there could be a couple in a month if we need to make sure that we get this done so that we can get it onto the board and basically in the pockets of the employee.
As a reminder, second Tuesday, bad for me. School board, all that good stuff. All right, so, and we still don't have any definitive answer on a 5th serviceman.
No.
Has it been presented to the board?
So there is not there's not a board item scheduled yet, but there is a tentative date down the road. I just don't have the actual
Okay.
date. Yeah. But
Yeah,
it is in process.
Okay.
Yes.
We don't want the doors being busted down by the constituents of that district saying, we're not being represented. The real thing, right?
It's all Tom's fault.
Yeah.
Okay, move on to item 5, adjournment. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you, guys,
Right. I have a dinner to
putting
go
up
to.
with us.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate your flexibility.
It's good to get off of some of the equipment I'm on every day. Get away from it.